Hey, welcome to another week of Crunching Your Growth, and I'm your host, Phil Masiello. This week, we're diving into the art of turning brilliance into legacy. My guest, Sharlene Lynch, is a keynote speaker, a business strategist, and a visual model architect who has spent over 30 years helping experts transform their lived experiences into scalable framework that create impact and income. So, from her shift process to her upcoming book, Mind Shift: The Future of Mindset, Sharlene empowers entrepreneurs, educators, and wellness leaders to move from intention to aligned action. So, if you're ready to grow beyond one to one and position yourself as the go to expert in your space, you won't want to miss this episode. And I think we've talked about mindset, mind shift. I mean, Charlene's got a different take on it. We've spoken about mindset and entrepreneurship on this show numerous times. And I truly believe that mindset is a big factor in success or failure. So let's bring Sharlene in. She's got a great story. She's got a great background, and we'll hear the whole thing. Hi.
Hello, thanks, Phil. I'm so excited to be here.
Thank you. Thank you, Charlene. I'm glad you came, and I'm glad you took the time to be with us today. So, why don't you take us back a little bit, your history and how you got to where your thinking process is today and what you've done?
Yes, Anne, can we just start off by just saying I'm not a real lover of the word mindset because our minds are not set.
Right.
They're malleable. We can shift our mind, and I believe that when we change our language, we change our life. So if we continually say mindset, 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 we're just reprogramming ourselves. So my mission on the planet is to get everyone to refer to it as mind shift and say, I've had a shift. So that we can just change our language. I really believe that it's going to help us move forward.
That's not a problem for me. I can certainly start using the term mind shift uh, because we talk about it constantly. And I've written a couple of articles about it because I've got examples from brands that we work with and the founders and the owners and what they've done and how some of them have been successful and some of them haven't, and a lot of it has to do with their mind shift.
Gotcha. I love it. I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
I'll be checking back in to make sure you're still using that language. Yeah. So, look, the story is wow, it's 30 years in the making. Even before that, someone actually asked me, I just recently was teaching high school students about entrepreneurship. And they said, well, when did you know you wanted to be an entrepreneur? And I had to think about it for a minute. And I'm like, I was that girl that sold lemonade at the end of the driveway, and I wouldn't have even been 8. So I think it's in your blood when you know you're an entrepreneur. So yeah, a long story. I'm 60, not this year. I'm turning 59 next month, or actually next week. In a year from now, 60. So wow, that's
Happy
pretty good.
birthday.
Thank you very much. And yes, I have, if I have a look at it, I've had more failures than I've had successes. Yes, and the failures or the fail forwards have pushed me forward to the success that I've got today. And I think if we shift the way that we look at failure and just look at it as a learning opportunity, if we can try and stop taking things so personally and try not to be offended, like two very important things, not to take things personally and not to be offended, then we can learn. I was coaching someone this morning and encouraging them to keep a book or and like a journal, but of things that haven't gone right, and write them down, and then write on the other page what they've learned from that, and just helping them shift the way that they're actually seeing their failures. But I've had some great ones. Phil, have you had any failures in your business?
I'll tell you, um, I've talked about this on this show numerous times. My first startup, I started when I was 27 years old, and it was an absolute disaster. And it was a disaster not because the business model was bad or the business was bad. The business was actually good. The whole operation was terrible because of me. My leadership skills were terrible. My process management was awful, and I did it for 3 years. I was exhausted. I gave up because it wasn't going the way I wanted to. And I'm sure that all the people who worked for me at that time just lived in turmoil every day because of me. And it was the way that I was thinking at the time because I felt like I'm the entrepreneur, I had the idea, and therefore I should have all the answers. And you can't have all the answers. And it was just stupid, and it was just inexperience and naivete. And then I sold it, and I moved from New York to Maryland, and I went to graduate school. And again, I tell people I didn't go to graduate school because I felt like I needed more education. I felt like I needed to change the way that my mind was working. I needed a mind shift, if you will. And so there you go. But I did a speech at a entrepreneur event a couple of months ago, and I opened it up and I said, I've founded 10 different companies in my lifetime. And everybody goes, oh, wow, 10, that's great. And I said, yeah, 4 are successful, 6 were not. So, and I explained to people why. I felt like, I had some really good successes with, I founded a retail chain. We exited out of that to a supermarket chain. I founded a skincare, a beauty product line. We exited out of that, and it did tremendously well. And I built, a couple of other businesses. And the ones that were successful, and I felt like I really understood marketing, and I really understood how to, how to market. And I do. I feel like when it comes to consumer products or speaking to a consumer, I can do it. But when I got myself into businesses that I didn't know anything about the consumer. Fashion, for example. I got into fashion 3 different times. And each time it was terrible because I can barely dress myself, let alone people, right? So I got into this business that I knew nothing about. I don't understand how people think about it. It's more emotional than it is rational or logical or a need base, right? People don't buy clothing because yes, there's needs, there's jackets and things that they need for weather, but for the most part, fashion is about emotion, how it makes you feel, things like that, and that's a little bit more tricky. And I especially cannot focus on fashion for women. So it was that type of thing. I got involved in that type of business. So yes, I've had failures. Yes, I talk about my failures. I learned from my failures. The first one was so devastating. I still carry it with me to this day. I'll never make those mistakes again, but it definitely takes a mind shift.
Oh, I love it. The language is working. I love it. I too have had some absolutely classic failures, but I have to say, losing $1 million business is the one that hurt the most because I needed it the most. And at that time, I had no concept that I was the one that was actually damaging the business because I was running the business, think CEO, running the shop, everything's fabulous. I didn't have that level of awareness that I was the one that was doing the damage. What I wasn't able to do is I wasn't able to step above the line. So, above the line is where we take ownership.
Right.
I wasn't taking ownership. Above the line is where we take accountability. I wasn't taking accountability. And over the line is where we take that level of responsibility. So under the line is where I was living. So what's under the line? Blaming everybody and everything. A space of total denial as well, and a space of excuses. So I like to say, grab your own oar and get out of bed and row your own boat. And that way, it always reminds me of those lessons that I've learned, which was really about living above the line and taking responsibility for the things that were happening, regardless of the position that you hold in your business. Let's face it, some of us have managers running our businesses and they handle the day to day, and we're supposed to be at the executive level making the board decisions. We still need to take that level of ownership. It's our business on every level. I managed to destroy $1 million business, and it wasn't until afterwards when I did the forensics, when I pulled it apart, when I sat in a different space and had a look at it through different lenses, that I was able to see that on every single level, everything that happened, I created that. I created it.
I, I agree with you. I did the same. I did the same thing. I had to really take a good hard look at myself. And it really wasn't, I was, I can tell you that when I first sold the business, my first business, when I first sold it for what was left, and I went down to Maryland, I was feeling like almost victim like. Oh, how this, I worked hard, I did all the right things. And then I was in school, I was in graduate school, and I was in this class, and they were talking about um, process and systems and things, and I realized in that class that it was 100% me. And then I started to reflect back on all these decisions and the way I acted and the way I did things, and that's when I realized, it was all me. It was 100% me. The business was actually good. The store was busy. It was a retail store. The store was busy. We had customers coming in. Everything was working, but it was not working on the back end. And it was just, I was literally working 6 days a week, 14, 15 hours a day, and just falling apart. And I wasn't transferring skills. I wasn't teaching anybody how to do anything. I felt like I'm the one who has to do it all. It's impossible.
It's look, leadership goes hand in hand. Like
Right.
we need to we need to have leaders, we need to lead them, and we need to lead ourselves. And if we're not really being the CEO of our own business, unless we are actually in a space of leadership, self leadership and leadership of others. Yes, and that's the first thing that I was blaming. I was blaming my leaders. I was blaming the people around me that were running different departments and doing it their way. And yeah, so if I had to look back and to see if I could fix it, it would definitely be really taking that level of responsibility and on every level, giving space so that I can sit and think about things, look at the facts and the figures, literally putting my hands over the names and just looking at the numbers because we have these little attachments, don't we? So if we're just looking at the numbers without the names, we can see exactly what's happening and make better decisions. But yeah, the bottom line is my identity, the person who I thought I was, wasn't a person who ran $1 million business. Looked good on the outside, wore the right clothes, said the right words, but the inside, I didn't have an image of myself. I didn't have an identity of myself as a woman who was running a business that size.
Yeah. Yeah, I can understand that. And I think there's a lot of people out there running business. I'll give you an example of a client we have, and they had a unique product, and it was a great product. And for 5 years before they came to us, for 5 years, they were stuck at this sales level, which was way underperforming. But they had something that was very relevant to the time, and they just weren't capitalizing on it. And we saw it very quickly, and we said, look, here's how to do this. And I'm speaking to you as an entrepreneur. I'm speaking to you. This is how I talk to clients a lot of times. So I'm speaking to you about someone who's done this, someone who's made a lot of mistakes, but someone who's done this and scaled and gotten over the hump. Here's how I do it. And they're like, yeah. Let's do it. Let's do it. Let's do it. Okay, great. We went through everything. We said, this is how we're going to do it. And we started on our end, putting the pieces into place for them. And literally it was the second week of doing this when they were like, well, this isn't working. I'm like, how do you know it's not working? We've got 7 days behind us. Why don't we just go back to doing what we were doing before? And I talked to them a little bit about it, because then I put my coaching hat on and I'm like, why do you want to do that? And then I realized that they weren't comfortable with growth. They were comfortable in the little world that they were living in, and they were never going to get out of it. And here was this could have been a product or a brand that could have grown to 10, 15 million very quickly, and they could have sold it. And instead, they're sitting there wallowing in the same place they've been, less than $1 million a year for the last 5 or 6 years. And it was 100% their mindset, because their
Mm.
mind was set.
Yep. Yes, but now they're going to shift. I love it. I love it.
Well, they
It's
wouldn't shift. That's the
well, they
problem.
wouldn't shift. Well, that's it. You get to. That's the only choice is shifting. If we stay where we are, you're lucky if it stays status quo. Ordinarily, what happens is, in my case, the demise,
Right.
because you consume. You start blaming one thing, start doing one thing, and then it just consumes, and then it just gets out of control. And I lost important people because I wasn't responding, behaving, showing any level of leadership. I was blaming people. I was very emotional on every level. I was probably having a midlife crisis in hindsight, and yeah, out the other side, I still have a lot of connection with these people that were in my proximity then, but it's a completely different relationship now,
Yeah,
and as sad as it is that that happened, I've learned a lot of lessons, and I am now happy because I'm in my happy place now. I'm doing the things that I love to do, helping brilliant entrepreneurs create their intellectual property and shifting them into a new phase. And for me, I like holding others up. I'm at that age, nearly 60. It's about holding others to shine now.
that's great. Yeah, you're 100% right. If you don't change, because the example that I just spoke about, they're not going to go anywhere but backwards. They're not going to go forward because their position is not defensible anymore. Their product was truly unique and relevant to the time, but now competitors are coming in, and competitors that have better marketing and have a better mind shift. They're going to go and overtake them, and they're going to wind up with nothing. And unfortunately, they could have been the creators of the category, and we just couldn't get that through to them. Um,
Yes.
Whereas I'll give you another example. We because I have Crunch Growth, which is an agency, but then Phil also coaches, and so we have this one, and sometimes they overlap. So we have this client that we took on. They entrepreneurs started the business about 7 or 8 years ago, and they came to us about 2 years ago, and they had grown very rapidly from zero to about 20 million. But they were stuck at that 20 million for a couple of years, and they thought it was a marketing and advertising problem, and they came to us to help them get out of it. We were looking at the business. They did retail. They had a retail brand as well as they did wholesale. And we looked at it, and just something didn't sit right with me. And then the other side of it was there was a guy that they had hired about a year before who was a solid A plus plus guy who could go out and make things happen on the wholesale side. I mean, this was a A plus plus sales guy, and knew the industry, knew everybody in the industry. And I couldn't understand. They were talking almost like, well, he's not able to make it happen. And it just didn't sit right with me. So I said, hey, after about a month of working with them, I said, hey, would you be open to doing a 2-day offsite? Because I think there's a different problem here rather than just advertising and marketing. Certainly we can make headway with advertising and marketing, but I think it's a different problem. And we did. We did a 2-day offsite, and about at least 3 hours into it, the first day, it became quite apparent what the problem was, and it was the problem of the entrepreneur, the founder, the guy who started the business that got them from 0 to 20. He couldn't take his hands off. He was still working in the business, not working on the business. And I said to this guy who was the A plus plus player, I said, "What is it? Why can't you make any headway?" He said he wants to be on every single sales call. So I'm bound by his by making appointments by his schedule, which is almost impossible because he's running operations, he's running buying, he's running selling, he's running everything. And so, and I said to the guy, why do you want to do that to yourself? Why would you do that? You hired this guy, he's an A plus plus player. Take the handcuffs off, let him go and do it. You need to be on maybe the closing. You don't need to be on every call, because the first sales call, the second sales call, sometimes they don't turn into the business. It sometimes takes 3 or 4 calls. And it took him a little while. The rest of the time, the rest of the second day, that's all we talked about was essentially shifting your mind, shifting the way that you're going to go about your business, shifting from somebody who's working in the business to working on the business. Granted, working in the business is essential when you're first starting out, but working on the business, you have to see the bigger picture. And we finally got through to him. Since that time, in the last 2 years, the A plus plus players booked about 11 million in business, and nobody can believe it. And now the founder, the CEO, sees that. Now it's like he's hiring people to just, you take care of it, I'll oversee it, and let's have meetings once a week. And he's in a different place. But that's how you grow a business. You can't grow a business when you're trying to do everything yourself. And I've made that mistake myself.
Absolutely, Phil, and it needs to start at that front end. Like, because that's the first thing that we do as an entrepreneur is do the heavy lifting at the front end.
Sure.
And that's the first place to start when you're looking at scale, looking at expanding, is getting multitudes of people at that front end so that you can take your hands off there and do the oversight. Like, I see this all the time with entrepreneurs that I work with. They're still running their front end of funnel, which really needs to be handled by other people, not them, so that they can move forward. I hear you, Phil. I have the conversation on a daily basis. I love it.
Yeah, we have the conversation quite often, but even we also have to I also have to check myself sometimes, because I get so into I enjoy numbers. I enjoy looking at the monthly reports for clients and giving guidance. And sometimes I get a little bit too far into it. And my folks have learned to say, you need to back off a little bit. But I still have a tendency to do it. But I'm too busy to really do it on an everyday basis.
I love it. I'm a frustrated artist, and that's one of the reasons why I create models. My team won't even let me in there anymore. I don't have the code to get into the software, because I get in there and micromanage everything, and now they've changed the password, so I can't get in. That's a bit sad, but that's the way that it is, because that's how they had to manage my extraction from that, because I would just take too long. And because I'm a recovering perfectionist, and I just want to get my fingers in there and love to play around and make pretty pictures. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree with you. It's difficult. It's a difficult shifting of your mind to do that. It's difficult because you started something and you want to be in there. You want to be able to do it. The one thing that I will tell you, that one of the businesses sort of forced me to be more of a um, process manager, leader, was when we were doing the beauty business, because we were constantly on the road. We were doing shopping channels all around, shopping channels in the United States, shopping channels in Canada. So we were constantly traveling, and then we were constantly meeting with retailers. So I really I wasn't in the office. I wasn't able to say, you guys do this, you guys do that. So it was a function of, managing the manufacturing, managing the operations, managing accounting, but doing it from afar and doing it more from systems, which I think changed a lot of how I looked at business, and to keep it to keep myself from getting into the weeds with it, because there would have been no way I could have done it. There's no way I could travel with, because we had a supermodel as a partner, and it was her. She was sort of the face of the brand, and she was a partner in the business. And so, we were constantly traveling with her. She's the one who was on the shopping channels. I couldn't do it. I can't sell skincare and beauty products.
I'm
So
sure you could, Phil.
no, I don't think I can. I mean, I can do it from the back end with her, but anyway, so it sort of forced me into this position of managing it with systems, looking at things when I'm on the road traveling, looking at reports and making calls and things like that.
The higher we go in the organization, in our businesses, the more important it is just for us to sit back, read the reports, use that part of our brain that is quite beautifully entrepreneurial,
Yeah.
and see the patterns inside of the reports, to see the things that maybe our managers aren't seeing, and to see that bigger picture. And so, look, that actually leads us a beautiful segue to the shift process, which is that's what the mind shift is all about. Is the five letters in shift are the process of shift. It's how I've moved from where I was to where I am now. Can I talk to you about that?
Absolutely.
Let's just do one letter at a time, and we'll have a conversation if that's okay. Because I'm curious to see how this fits into how you've developed your businesses as well. So, in the shift process, the first letter obviously is S, and S stands for see the big picture. And for me, so many times I have not been able to see past like just past my hands. I only can be able to see the things that are in my close proximity. I haven't been able to see a bigger picture of the business. I haven't been able to take a step back and imagine what if I wasn't doing everything? What if I was able to let go of the things that I hold on to so tightly? And it wasn't until I was able to draw a bigger picture of what was physically possible for my businesses, that I was able to go, okay, now we're onto something. So how has this affected you, seeing a big picture? Is it something that you do for your clients, see the big picture for them? Because I've noticed many of the clients that come into my proximity, unless I take them through a growth simulator where we can show them the facts and the figures of what's possible for them, they don't even have the concept that their business is something that could be turned into an academy or something that they can scale and franchise and license. Like, it hasn't even entered their their thought process.
Well, the one thing that I think I am excellent about and have been for years is overarching strategy. I'm very good at seeing it for not only my own businesses, for everybody's business, and then trying to figure out, I need somebody then to take that and build the minutia behind it. I'm not good at that. So I'm really good at that. And unfortunately, in my first business, I was trying to do that as well as do the minutia, and I can't do it. It's not good. It's not the way that my mind works. So I agree with you. You have to get that across. But I will tell you that that is one of the most difficult things to get somebody to see about their business, because when you start a business, you have this idea in your head of what that business is going to be. And sometimes entrepreneurs don't like the pivot, and the pivot is sometimes necessary. I have never seen a business, and I've told this to I mentor entrepreneurs at University of Maryland School of Entrepreneurship, and I tell them all the same thing. Great, you wrote a business plan. That's a fantastic start. Don't spend a tremendous amount of time trying to build the best website, trying to build the best marketing plan, because it's all going to change. It's all going to change. The minute you start selling, you're going to get feedback and you're going to have to shift. You're going to have to change. And that's a really difficult thing to get across to people. And even when they're in it and they come to you and say, hey, I need some coaching, I need some help, I need some direction. Even if you walk them through the process, sometimes they struggle with seeing the big picture. So
Yep, you're speaking my language. It never ceases to amaze me once we've gone through the process of the growth simulator and we take people and we show them how they can make the first $15-20 million through the process, that just their eyes light up in a different way, that they've never even considered that as an option for development of their business. The other thing is that I noticed that people don't start with that level of how I want to turn up as a human being. So
right.
this is one of the things that destroyed my business as well, actually several times and several different occasions, is that I didn't figure out how I want to turn up. So I ask my clients, what's your perfect day look like? What does it look like? Do you want days filled with meetings? What do you want your days to look like? How do you want to turn up? Do you like to be with other people? Would you like to manage other people? Like, how best do you turn up as a human being? And everyone's got a completely different story. Everybody's different. There's no two stories that I've heard since I've been doing this that are exactly the same.
Right.
But when we start with that, how you want to turn up and how you want your life to look like, now we're working with you as a person. Because look, they've been saying for way, way too long that business is business. Like, it's not. Business isn't business. Business is personal.
Yeah.
People run businesses. So we've got to come back to putting people first. And if we can put founders first and how founders like to turn up, like you said, Phil, you like to come up with the big concepts, get someone else to take care of the details. Yes, and you're still a numbers guy, so you still like to have a look and a fiddle. That if you can figure out how you want to spend your day, then you can build your business according to that. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I love see the big picture. Sometimes it means creating vision boards. Sometimes it means creating just a journal, whatever it is, whatever you need to do as a business owner to see the big picture of what's possible. And if you can't, you need to have a conversation, maybe with Phil, so that you can, like, what is possible for your life?
Right.
What is possible? So yeah, that's the first letter. So see the big picture. The other thing is that just, Phil, so that you know, I've got a history of mental illness. And for me to be able to move forward, what happened is, if I started with following the steps that the rest of the human race told me I had to do, I would never have been able to move. So I'm ADHD, which is actually an asset. So just saying, I'm totally OCD, which is now actually an asset. And I'm totally dyslexic, which I'm loving to say that LinkedIn now has it as an asset thinking. So, we're all happy about that. Yes, and so I'm neurospicy, let's call it that. If I didn't start with a dream sequence of what's possible for my life, I would have been stuck in that lane of trying to micromanage my mental health. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So for me, starting with the big picture is the very best way to move yourself personally forward, but also as a business as well. Yeah. Okay. The
Right.
next letter is H, and H is to hone in on reality. And this is the space that you need a coach. This is where you need your Phils. This is where you need your Charlene's, because we can't see the trees for the forest. We can't, because we're living in it.
Right.
And we need someone else to go, hang about. Let's get the facts and figures out. You think things are okay, but let's have a look at your bottom line. Let's have a look at your margins. Let's have a look at where things are. What are your projections? And we need someone to do that for us if that's not our level of expertise. And if it is your level of expertise, I'm still saying you need someone else to look at it, because sometimes we don't, as I said before, put our hand over the names and we just look at the numbers. So whether that's people or departments, we really need to, because we've all got our pets, haven't we? We've all got our darlings.
Sure.
Sometimes we've got to kill our darlings, really. That's just the bottom line, because if they're not performing, we have to find other ways to move things forward. So, yeah, hone in on reality. So where has this turned up for you in your life, Phil?
Well, I think that I've had to face reality numerous times. When you have several failures in business, you have to face that reality. You have to look at it and say, is it going where you want it to go? What do the numbers say? But it's something you have to face every day. It's something, in my opinion, you have to do it. That's there's an organization, a group called Entrepreneurs Organization, EO, and then there's YPO and WPO, worldwide. And part of that program is that you get together with your cohort, 4 or 5 people, fellow entrepreneurs, and you meet once a month, and you talk about your business and you talk about the details. It's confidential. Nothing leaves the room, but it forces you to face your reality of your business and hear feedback from your fellow entrepreneurs about what you should do and how you should do it. So I think constant feedback, constant looking at reality is important.
I love it, Phil. And so here's the challenge for me in business and also in personal is if I started with the H, honing on reality, I wouldn't have moved forward.
Right.
I would have been stuck. I would have been stuck both personally, mentally, physically, spiritually, and business. So for me, seeing the big picture cast an energy, a frequency forward of what's possible for moving forward. And now I've got an idea of exactly where I am because I've got help and I've found out where I am. Now I've got my vision forward, where I am. Now you've got your map.
Right.
But so many other processes start with having a look at where you are right now, both on a personal level and in business. So can I just encourage everybody to think about the shift process and start with the big picture of what's possible? There's a frequency of expansion in there and a frequency of possibility, which is just magic on its own. So the next letter, the third letter is I, and this is implement quick wins. I love this because for me, when I was able to implement very small wins, I was able to see, do you know what? Actually, that's pretty good. That's pretty easy. That's not complicated. And what we know about how the human brain works is when we implement quick wins, it gives us a serotonin hit. It helps us believe that other change is possible. So, what can you do in your business that's going to give you a really great return on investment and it's going to give you really, really quick wins? So, Phil, have you had some quick wins?
Oh, I preach this all the time to startups and entrepreneurs. When you first get going, you should wake up every day and look at where you are and think, how am I going to progress this business 1 or 2% forward today? What are the steps I'm going to take that are going to push this forward profitably? And so you're always thinking about how to get some quick wins, how to get some quick sales, how to get some movement. Because if you don't, everybody's always looking for the big one. Everybody wants the big one. Well, I'm looking for something where I can get 100 orders a week or 200 orders a week out of. Sometimes you just need smaller ones, because then by the end of the month, you'll be at.
Yeah, exactly, Phil. So, like, I'm preaching to the converted. Ring up, call someone, sell it. If they buy it, okay, you might have a minimal viable product, but you know what? Sell it first before you actually do a mass
Oh, that's a
production.
whole different discussion. Yeah. That's pre-selling before you even launch. I tell people all the time, minimum viable product, get out there and find somebody before you invest any money. Get the minimum amount out there, and then find somebody who's going to pay for your product. Because if you can't find someone to pay for your product, then you don't have a product.
Absolutely, absolutely. And a lot of the education space where I work, I say you've got to test it, got to test and measure it. Let's make sure that it actually works, make sure that it's saleable before you build the monster, the marketing monster to take it to market. So prove it
Exactly.
first. So these implement quick wins are both business, they're personal. For me, it was giving up coffee. So this is tea, Phil. Giving up coffee, because when I was able to give up coffee, I'm like, oh, if I can give up coffee, and I was an 8 cup a day girl, maybe there's other things that I can do as well. So these implement quick wins work on a personal level, but they also work on a business level as well. But I like to look for quick wins every day. So if I can find a quick win every day, what it does, it just goes, you know what? If I was able to do that, what else can I do?
Right.
And, even in a meeting, the team know now, if I'm in a meeting, the first thing I'm going to do is, okay, what's the quick wins that we can do that we can actually get done while we're here on these very short meetings? That's the other thing. I like short meetings.
Oh, so do I. So do I.
I love it. I love it. Love it. Okay, so that's the third letter, and then the next letter is F. Is focus on the patterns. So patterns are. Look, if you love numbers, you'll see the patterns in the numbers. They just stare at you. And if you're not a numbers lover, well, you might have to look a little bit harder. But the patterns are there, and sometimes we have to look over a longer period of time, and sometimes we have to look deeper as well. So we have to focus on the patterns, because in business, in personal life, these patterns, they emerge. But the challenge is we're not looking for them.
Right.
So for me, one of the greatest things on a personal level is journaling. Yeah, is writing things down. So for me, it was able to see that I had some stinking thinking. Because I was able to write things down, and look, the patterns of my stinking thinking were emerging from the journal. I could, oh, okay, that's not good. Let's see about
Right.
that.
Right.
And I could have a deeper conversation about it and see where that goes. And in business, on every level, you've got to focus on the patterns. And this is, if you're a serial entrepreneur, then, is there a pattern there? Have you developed now? You said, Phil, that you've had 10 businesses and 4 have been hugely successful and 6 were learning opportunities. But have you seen patterns in your businesses? Have you seen patterns in other people's businesses where they've repeated these patterns and maybe they're just not learning?
I, yeah, I've seen businesses. I've seen patterns in my behavior where I get, like I said, the biggest one is I get involved in things I shouldn't get involved in, things that I don't know about. I do very well when it's things that I know about. I understand. I understand consumer behavior when it comes to consumer products, consumables, but not when it comes to when it comes to emotional selling, or I mean, to a certain extent, everything is emotional, but when it comes to things that aren't necessary but are emotional purchases, I don't do so well, especially when it comes to people that I don't understand. You know,
I hear you. I hear you. And you've touched on another rabbit hole that we could go down, and that is really intimately knowing your avatar, intimately knowing your customer. So when we can know them differently, it's true. We pick up their language, we understand their nuances, we see what they're looking for, we answer their pain points, we get their attention, we get the sale. So yeah, like I'm absolutely in love with market research.
oh
Now,
yeah,
I don't have to be the one that does it. So in the old days, when I was developing my first business, I had to do all the market research because I love it. I learned really the hard way. You know what? That's not the best use of my time doing market research. So now we outsource it. But yeah, I was that girl doing all the market research. I
yeah,
know you can laugh now, but at the time I was like, I'm the only one that can do this. I'm really good at it. Anyway, that's okay. I've learned a lot of lessons. So
yeah.
look, the last letter is T, and T is take massive action. So I'm a recovering perfectionist. So I add in there, take massive imperfect action. We only have to take a step forward, and we only have to be heading in the right direction, because if you're heading in the right direction, you take a step forward. And even if you take a step either side, you're still heading in the right direction. It's where we don't take action. And I have lost not just businesses, but relationships, because I haven't taken the action, been like a deer in headlights, because I've been waiting for the perfect time, for the perfect product, for perfection, when really that's just not going to work. Has that ever happened to you, Phil?
I never chase perfection. I learned early on to just go with what you're we can call it minimal viable product, but I'm always a big fan of getting out there and figuring it out. And it really started when I worked for other people, because they would come up when I was younger, they would come up with ideas and they would just go with it and see what happened and get the consumer reaction or get the customer's reaction to it and talk to people about it, and then come back and refine it and then turn it into a product. And so I've lived that. I do it all the time. I still do it. I'm a big fan of getting out there and getting the product out there, getting it in somebody's hands, whether it's a physical product, whether it's a SaaS product, whether it's a service. Get out there and make sure that there's somebody who's buying it, and then talk to them and find out, do they see value in it? What don't they like? What do they like? And then come back and continue refining.
I love it. Even if it's free, you think about Facebook, think about ChatGPT, think about the things that are monsters now, that they were free services in the beginning. So, like, even if it's free, so that you can test it, make sure there's a market for it, and then you can move forward. But as a recovering perfectionist, I would want to make sure that it was perfect before I move forward. And I have lost so many windows of opportunity because I've been waiting for things to be perfect. So, look, the last letter is T, take action. Because there's magic in action, there's frequency in action, and it becomes magnetic. And all you have to be doing is pointing in the right direction. Even if it's not perfect, you can always adjust, always adjust.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's the
Chasing
5 letters of shift.
Yeah, chasing perfection is the brakes on progress. It just stops progress, because you can't chase perfection, because you're never going to be perfect. You're always if you are perfect, then you have nothing to work for. You have nothing to change because it's perfect. But I've never seen perfect. I don't know what perfect looks like. But you're 100% right. And it frustrates me. We got involved with this young entrepreneur who had developed this game, and it was unique, and he was out there pushing it, and we got involved with it on multiple levels, not just as helping him market it, but also as investors. And if he started going off into other directions, he's getting this product and this product. I said, you have to just focus on getting this. I said, because you're a startup and you don't have the resources to do 4 or 5 products. Let's just focus on this one. And he and this is not just him. I hear this all the time. Well, look at Apple. They've got 20 products, 30 products. I said, when Apple started, they started with the Apple II. That was it. The Apple One, and then or the Macintosh, whatever it was called when they first started, and then they had the Apple II, and that was it. So don't talk to me about what Apple is today after 50 years. Talk to me about what Apple was when they first started, because you're not Apple and you don't have Apple's resources. And I get that all the time from entrepreneurs, that they think, well, this is how people do it, but you have to go back and look at the history. Henry Ford, when he started making cars, he had one car, the Model T, and it came in one color, black. Yeah. So just and so again, you can't chase perfection, because it's never going to happen. And so what you have to do is iterate. You're just constantly iterating in business. You try something, you see if it works. If it doesn't, you go back, refine, fix, go in a different direction, pivot, whatever you have to do.
I love it. I love it. And so that's the shift process. 5 simple steps that can shift you from where you are to where you want to be. It's what I share as a keynote, and also education programs, and also workshops as well, both for kids. So I teach in schools, and I'm even doing a gig in some prisons as
Uh-huh.
well. Yes, and I know, right? To help them shift the way they're thinking. So yeah, I love it. I love it. But more than all of it is that the my process of developing my models around the shift is what drove me to create models for other entrepreneurs. So yeah, I love it. I love it. I love model creation, taking something that's not tangible and creating something tangible from it. Yeah.
That's fantastic. Yeah. Well, we're running out of time. We've got a couple more minutes. Great conversation, but any parting words for entrepreneurs, aspiring entrepreneurs, or people in general?
Yeah, you've got it. You've got this. You've got this. I believe that every human has got everything that they need. Yes, sometimes you might need a coach and a mentor. You might need to shift your proximity. But I know that you've got this. You're designed this way. So you just need to lean into that, shift the way that you're thinking, shift your language, shift your thoughts, and you can shift your life.
Mind shift, not mindset. Some people do have a mindset and it's set and it's not changing. So, well, thanks. And people can get in touch with you how?
Oh, well, probably the website's a really good place to start. It's Sharlene Lynch, but I'm everywhere. You just look, I'm everywhere.
You're everywhere. So all of your information, I believe we have your website and we have your LinkedIn. That will all go in the description. So if anybody wants to get in touch with Charlene, you'll be able to get her. You'll be able to look in the description of the show. And uh, uh, so, yeah. So that will be great. So thanks for joining us. I really appreciate you taking the time and sharing your wisdom on creating your shift system that sells and transforms a message, I guess, into a movement, right? If you want to learn more about your shift process, your work with, we didn't really talk about Speakers Tribe Global, but that was on your bio. And then look for your upcoming book on MindShift and be sure to follow her, dive deeper into her world of strategy, mindset, and legacy. And as always, if you enjoyed today's episodes, make sure you subscribe, share it with your network, and keep crunching your growth. And thank you again for being on the show.
Thanks, Phil.
All right.